Well, here I am. After like 8 months, I've got purple hair, sticky hand earrings, and more opinions to share with you all. My question today is anyone allowed to be just okay at pole dancing? Or to phrase it slightly differently, is anyone allowed to just do pole as a hobby? Because it feels like to me the answer is no. Or at the very least, not really. Merriam-Webster defines,
oh, brother!
30 seconds into a video and I'm already whipping out a dictionary definition? Okay, well, hang on. Merriam-Webster defines the word hobby as a pursuit outside one's regular occupation, engaged in especially for relaxation. If you've ever touched a pole for more than a quick spin, you know that the word relaxation is pretty hilarious to throw out here. Here is a post from that most fun place on the internet, the pole dancing subreddit. Last year, I really started to resent pole because it made me feel bad about myself. Why am I even taking it this seriously? I argue that in today's climate, nobody is allowed to treat pole like a regular old hobby because of several factors that just kind of pile one on top of the other. The need to constantly improve, our exposure to the highlight reel that is social media, the burden to create content, the urge to monetize, and the pressure to teach or compete. Number 1, the need to constantly improve. A quick grain of salt before I jump in here. Of course, it's a fine thing to want to get better at your chosen hobby. If you're someone who knits, you probably want to develop a steadier hand for more even knots or whatever. If you're someone who gardens, you probably want to grow healthier tomatoes than you did the year before. If you're a pole dancer, you probably want to improve your pole dancing. But my issue is that there seems to be an unending pressure to improve, to get that next trick, to nail that sequence, to disregard your own limitations or abilities just to keep up with everyone else. I mean, for goodness sake, I have been trying to get my gosh darn Aisha for over 3 years now because it seems like the move that establishes you as like a pretty good pole dancer by whatever twisted metric the internet has me convinced exists for pole dancing. I've seen people get it within a couple months. I've seen people way heavier than me get it. I've been in a pole class where literally everybody except for me was doing their stupid Aishas. If I could take a step back, I might be able to acknowledge some facts. Yeah, of course I don't have this move yet because I won't train it alone at home because I don't feel comfortable doing it without a trained spotter around. Yeah, of course I don't have this move yet because I have hyperflexible elbows and I have to be really conscious of how I am positioning my arms in a tricky position like that. Yeah, of course I don't have this move yet. I took 2 months off of pole to focus on stage managing. I feel like if our current environment allowed us to just see pole as a fun hobby, I'd be able to listen to myself when I tell myself those things. But I feel like a failure for not having this super hard trick that everybody and their dog seems to have. Which brings me to the exposure to the highlight reel that is social media. Think about how hobbies used to be before social media started dominating our lives. If your hobby was basketball, you could go on down to the basketball court. You'd watch people miss a few shots and have to do that awkward hunched over chasing after the ball thing in between their epic dunks. And the way that I say epic dunks should prove to you that I don't know anything about basketball. If your hobby was Yu-Gi-Oh! Duels, you might show up to a Toys R Us with your best friend in 4th grade and enter into a tournament and immediately lose and then sit around watching until the kid with the best mullet eventually won. And I'm not speaking from experience. But nowadays, it's just the thing to post the highlight reel of whatever it is that we do, which takes out all the evidence of all the hours of frustrated tears, hard work, and learning we had to do to get there. We are losing the steps in between and only seeing the end result, which makes it seem like there aren't any steps in between, only instant gratification. I like what this person on the pole dancing subreddit said. Of course, everything looks easy peasy when I post the videos and people appreciate what I do, but every time that I talk to someone about what I do as a hobby, they hit me with, "Oh, I would never try that because I would fall if I try it," or "You can do that because you're naturally flexible," or "You can do that because you have strong hands. I would never succeed." I don't want to sound like a brat because I know that these comments aren't malicious, but damn, why TF do people think it comes natural to us? Like, when it comes to football or basketball or lifting weights, everyone is aware that those people are consistent and work hard to achieve those goals. But when it comes to pole, everyone is suddenly blind to the fact that it takes years to achieve various tricks, fluidity, and body awareness. I mentioned this in my Is Pole the Hardest Aerial Sport video, but one of the pains of pole is how easy it looks when you see a video of it versus how hard it is when you actually try it yourself. which is why we see posts like these, which drive me absolutely bananas. Hi there, I am just starting out on my pole journey, and I'm the type of person who goes over the top when I start a new hobby, so I bought an X-Pole to set up in my tiny home. I am giving it my best and practicing when I can. I've taken about 5 classes with another one scheduled for tonight, but it feels like I'm just not progressing much. 5 pole classes. Let's assume those classes are an hour long, because that's what's standard. Let's also assume the teacher has you warm up for 10 minutes and then cool down for 5 minutes at the end, although when has anyone ever actually done a 5-minute cool down? So that leaves 45 minutes. But let's also assume that you're not doing tricks the entire time, that you're taking some rest breaks, that you're watching the instructor, so that leaves about 30 minutes that you're actually touching the pole. That means you've only done pole for less than 3 hours, and you're worried that you're not progressing much? Here's another. I feel like I will never progress. I wanted to start pole dancing for 4 years, always watching videos on how to do tricks and stuff. I bought a pole last week. I don't really have space in my room, and I literally cannot do anything more than a very basic spin. I do not have a dance history, nor very much muscle since I have spine problems. Any help? I really liked this response. You have been doing it for a week. Calm down. It's normal to suck at something when you start. But that's just it. Here's someone who has only ever watched videos, who has confessed to not having enough space to dance, who doesn't have much muscle, and who has spine problems, being disappointed that they can only do a basic spin after a week. It's the instant gratification thing playing out in real time. I can't fault these people, really, because, like I said, social media is making it seem like all any of us do all the time is nail every single combo and look like graceful butterflies while doing so. Even I'm guilty of this. I do think the trend might be slowly changing, but there's a lot of pole content out there, and a lot of it is just the highlight reel, and that's because of the burden to create content. I think a large part of that is because social media pretty much demands that we are posting all the time. And if all anyone else is posting is their pretty stuff, that makes us want to post that too. There are definitely reasons to film yourself doing pole. And having cute stuff to post is a legit reason, don't let me tell you otherwise. But it can also be super useful for tracking your progress or seeing what you're doing wrong. But in today's day and age, it almost seems like if you film something, you gotta post it. And if you post it, you gotta post more to meet the demands of the platforms that are always trying to keep people engaged. I mean, for goodness sake, every time I post something, Instagram pops up with a helpful suggestion that's like, you have a couple of comments. Why don't you respond to those so that you can drive up engagement on your post? And now that you've posted, why don't you post again? We'll give you a cool badge if you post again. It's totally fun and normal to want to post your achievements, but it feels like the platforms themselves have moved away from just letting you do that and then go about your day, instead just pressuring you to keep posting more, drive up that engagement. So it kind of feels like there's a film yourself, post yourself, become a content creator pipeline for pole dancing. And let me tell you, the content creator element ain't all it's cracked up to be. A lot of pole dance creators I follow have been pretty quiet on their platforms lately. Poltato Gem hasn't posted in a year. Pole with Aaron literally no longer exists on YouTube. And obviously, I stopped posting, at least here on YouTube. And that's because it really just sucks the fun out of this hobby. At least it did for me. You can hear me talk a lot more about this in my Why I Quit YouTube and Pole Dancing video, but something else happened this year that I think is worth mentioning. I almost had my first sponsor. It was awesome. Pole Place, which is an online platform for home polers, reached out to me and offered me 6 free months of premium membership, and then they suggested I make a video trying out their service. For transparency, they gave me the 6 months free without me ever promising them anything in return. There was no contract, it was just, here's the platform, give it a try. I checked out their website and it seemed cool, but then I thought to myself, gosh, I really should be looking at this on my phone so that I can screen record it for the video. And that kind of dampened my excitement, so I stopped looking at the website for the day. Then I went to set up to film myself trying one of their tutorials, but I wasn't having a great mental health day, and the thought of having to be on camera actually kept me from doing any pole at all that day. And then it happened again. And again. They gave me the membership in late March, and then a week later reached out to say, can't wait to see you work out with us. It was a very cute, innocent message, but it absolutely paralyzed me. At that moment, I felt so trapped. Even though, like I said, we didn't actually have a contract and nobody was actually pressuring me. But I felt so much pressure to film, which made me not even want to go into the pole room, which meant I avoided pole, which meant I resented pole. That story doesn't even have a satisfying conclusion. I just left them hanging. I never looked at their website again. I never filmed any content. I never even sent a message explaining that their very generous gift had for some reason caused me to spiral out. And all this happened because I felt my little pole hobby morph very suddenly and forcefully into yet another obligation in my life, and it freaked me out. Speaking of obligations, the pressure to teach or compete. If you're not monetizing your hobby on social media as it so desperately wants you to do, which by the way, you might see a mid-roll ad right here because YouTube keeps telling me I could raise my revenue by 3 to 5% if I put one in, then you might feel pressured to monetize your hobby by becoming a pole instructor. After all, if you're good at something, why not teach that something and make a little money while you're doing it? Here's 2 harsh reality checks. Not everybody is meant to be a pole teacher, and the money is not as impressive as you'd think. I taught 2 whole intermediate pole classes in my brief and silly career as a pole instructor. Why? Because the studio I was at had trouble hanging on to intermediate instructors, and I still wanted to be in class at that time, so I said, I'll do it. I had no business doing that. Sure, I might be an intermediate pole dancer, and I might be able to explain a move or two, but I'm not certified anywhere. I don't have a working knowledge of anatomy. I'm just like some guy. So I taught all the non-inverted moves I could think of because I was terrified of spotting people in an inverted position where they might be able to fall on their neck, including the dangerous bird. And then afterwards I heard from multiple students that they experienced weird hip pain. So again, I had no business doing that. And I got paid $40 each time. There is such a prevailing notion of you can't just do pole, you've got to do something else with it. And I think that forces a lot of people into teaching who really shouldn't be teachers. Their friends see them doing something cool and encourage them to go for it. Our hustle culture makes you feel like any second that you're not monetizing whatever you're doing is a second wasted. Pole studios themselves are oftentimes desperate for anyone other than the owner to come in and teach. All of this just adds to the idea that this can't just be a hobby that you come in and do a couple times a week. Then there's competing. Well, if you're not a teacher and you're not a social media influencer, then you gotta at least be competing, right? Every time I do an Ask Me Anything on Instagram, I inevitably get asked if I'm going to do a pole competition. That is not me trying to throw shade at any of you for asking me that question. I welcome all sorts of questions. For me, it just sort of speaks to the default assumption we have that every pole dancer has an interest in competing. I do not. At all. I don't want someone to sit there at a table and scribble notes about my unpointed toes. I will cry. I asked my followers on Instagram about pole competitions, and I got this response. Where I am, it's really rare for there to be any performance opportunities outside of competition, and I wanted to put my choreography in front of an audience. I didn't care too much about the actual competing, though of course it feels great when you place well, though the social pressure was also a factor. As with a lot of sports, I think there's an expectation to compete once you've reached a more advanced level, and at the time, I cared more about getting that validation from the community. Right. It feels like there's an expectation placed on us that's like, okay, you can do these cool tricks, but what's next? It's like this unending escalator that we can't get off of. So we all have to constantly improve because we are inundated with videos of people doing badass stuff that they feel pressured to post to feed the ever-hungry algorithm that insists that we monetize every second of our time in this hustle economy. And if they post a lot, they must be good enough to teach or compete, which means that they need to constantly improve. Look, I made this video not to complain. Although, let's be real, most videos are just me complaining, but I did want to open up a discussion about this. What would happen if we all just stopped treating pole like this go, go, go thing that we need to constantly improve at, to post about, to monetize? Oh my gosh, I've been doing this sport for 2 minutes and I'm not the best at it yet. What do you think pole communities and classes and spaces would be like if that pressure was lifted? I would love to see your responses below in the comments. I may not make a full-fledged comeback after this video, but it has been nice to talk to you all again. So, see you soon? Bye!